Hello, Vincent.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you. How are you doing?
Likewise, nice to meet you. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Yeah, doing very well. It's a lovely sunny day here
Yeah.
in London, which is very rare, but I'll take it. It's been a very on and off summer here.
Is
Where,
it
where do I find you today?
Montreal, Canada?
Lovely stuff. Well, thank you so much for joining me and speaking about your film Trail. Trail is actually the opening film in program two. So you're going to be screening in a small cinema in East London. It's going to be the first film of that program on Sunday, the 17th of September. And then it also screens throughout the entirety of the festival from the 16th to the 24th of September online. So really happy to have your film. For those who haven't seen the film, please explain the basic premise of Trail and yeah, what how you kind of came about the idea for that film.
Certainly. Well, it's a very simple story about a hiker who ends up in what you could say Canadian woods in wintertime and stumbles upon a macabre discovery. And from there, but some thrills occur throughout. And don't want to give out too much, but that's about it. Very simple
Yeah,
story. That's
yeah.
that was our goal.
You mentioned there, obviously the Canadian woods, the physical space and atmosphere of the setting is very cold, harsh, lonely. It's very eerily beautiful as well. How did you actually go about finding and selecting the location for Trail?
Yeah, I mean, so for myself, I am a bit of an outdoorsman. I wouldn't say a very good one, but certainly I've done that quite a bit. Having grown up here in Canada, being a lover of the winter time as well. I near Montreal, there's plenty of uh, very there's provincial parks and that kind of thing, um, trails in the woods. So what we did was we just went scouting, and we found this area about southeast of Montreal, uh, called the name is in French, Mont Saint-Hilaire, and it's very popular. Lots of folks go there to walk upon trails, but we've approached the people at the trail and the people that manage the area, and asked if we could shoot a film. And they actually gave us a little bit of an area that's closed off to the population. So there was a lot of trickery with the camera angles and whatnot. In some instances, just outside the frame, there were actual people walking about. But we managed to trick the magic of cinema, and make it seem as though we were all alone deep into the woods. So that's basically how it came about. Just
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's a great location, and yeah, you definitely did a great job of making it feel like an expansive and very lonely space. The
thank you.
film, as you mentioned, follows a hiker, an adventurous explorer ready to take on nature. From the beginning, in my mind, he seems as though he's attempting to escape something. We
Mhm.
never really understand the inner life or backstory of the character and why he set out on this trail. But did you ever have something in mind?
That's I'm very glad you say that. That's exactly the feeling I wanted to convey. I mean, for myself, living in Montreal, inevitably this character has a little bit of, since I wrote the thing, and it has a little bit of myself in there. Um, I've grown up outside the city, and like I mentioned, I'm an outdoorsman. So I certainly, being in the city, being in the film industry, I kind of have to be here, but it's not where I'm most comfortable. So I would say I probably wanted to convey that feeling in the character. Um, so I'm glad it comes about. I'd imagine it comes about with the sort of the music and the moments of peace that we see in the film. Uh, our actor Craig was fantastic in conveying that, of course. But that is absolutely the feeling I was going for, a bit of an escape from civilization, as it were. Uh,
Yeah, fantastic. No, it really comes across, and of course, where things kind of end up maybe changes quite dramatically.
Yeah.
You know, as we kind of reach the conclusion. But I do really enjoy that patient and slow build to the action at the center of this film, really helped along by a fantastic and minimalist score, which really kind of reminded me of a few films. You know, certainly the expansive and kind of mundane dysfunctionality of Fargo, for example, was something that it really reminded me of. Were there any films or maybe works of art or even philosophical ideas that served as inspirational touchstones for this film?
Certainly, I mean, Fargo was a big one for sure. I mean, actually I won't say this, but the color palette, let's say well, let's just say this, the contrast between pure white and then the red, you know, that sort of motif comes across quite a bit. There was a little bit of the Revenant in there. I mean, it's in a sense, it can feel a little bit bluish and faded throughout the film. There was certainly a philosophical idea that I did want to convey, which is kind of the myth of Sisyphus. So sort of cycles and whatnot. The absurdity of that idea of human existence sort of repeating itself. So again, not to give away too much, but there's that idea that from the very beginning, I would say, was the genesis of what I wanted, what kind of story I wanted to explore. I have had comments like, "Oh, this feels like some kind of science fiction story," which is fair. There's that Love, Death, and Robots episode from season 1 where there's anyway, the plot is somewhat similar. So if anybody here have seen that show, they might know what I'm talking about. Aside from that, I would say very much just personal experience of being outdoors. So there's that aspect of it as well. But generally, yeah, those were my inspirations.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually brought up the sci-fi aspect. I mean, there were a couple of sci-fi films that you know, were brought to my mind as well, seeing it, especially on multiple viewings. And I know, you know, in a strict sense, it isn't a sci-fi movie at all. In fact, it's probably more about the nightmare of the everyday, you know, the kind of, you know, cyclical fashion of just kind of going through a routine. That's probably the bigger horror in the film. But yeah, I do see the kind of science fiction comparisons for sure in that kind of like cyclical element of the narrative. There's no dialogue, obviously, throughout the film. Was this always the intention? Did that idea that you wanted no dialogue sort of come before the story itself, or did the story come first?
I would say that's a little bit difficult to answer. Let's say from the very beginning, I certainly wanted to create a film. You know, people use film as a tool to express very much different things. You know, you can use it to moralize, you know, to give some kind of morality proposition, or you can use it as a tool for social change. I kind of I wanted to get into this story and explore a more spiritual side of it. Use film as a spiritual tool. It just made the most sense to me to this is about a person all alone, right? Out in nature. It just made sense to have absolutely no dialogue, not even a sort of a narrator or anything like that. I tend to want to allow nature to speak through its silence, and that's very not that I'm trying to be a poet here or anything, but I just, you can, if you watch the film, there's, as you said, it's a very slow pace, slow burn kind of film, and we do have a lot of moments where it's as though the mountains and the trees are expressing some kind of emotion. So that feeling was for sure something I wanted to convey from the very beginning. It just felt natural that there would be no dialogue. So again, to bring it back to the spirituality aspect, it was to explore that sentiment when you're out in nature.
Sure. Yeah, I suppose it's quite a natural kind of response really to the idea, isn't it? That like, you know, the character I suppose isn't necessarily going to have anyone to speak to. So it's really kind of enjoying the system or the relationship between himself and you know the great outdoors. But it definitely, you know, comes across really well and really works. And I guess, you know, by the end of the film, without trying to give too much away, the title of the film does take on another meaning as well. And it's a really satisfying ending as well. I think you've made a very clever film, and I think viewers will find the film very rewarding on multiple views as well. Is there anything that you're working on next?
Thank you. Yes, there is. So we're preparing. We're in pre-production for another short film here. Cannot give away too much, but whatever Trail is, this next film is absolutely the opposite. This film is full of dialogue, is very theatrical, takes place indoors in one area. It's kind of the one thing I could say. It's kind of an exploration of old lovers, and there's a lot of there's a certainly I would say there's a major twist very similar to this film. Perhaps that would be the only similarity. But yes, so that should be shooting next year in springtime, and we're very excited.
Fantastic. Sounds yeah, very intriguing indeed. Feel free to send it our way when it's all complete. We'd
Yes.
see it. Thank you so much again, Vincent, for joining me today. And yeah, your film's fantastic. We're really happy to have it as part of the festival. You take care, and I'm sure we'll speak to you again soon. All the best.
Likewise, Dean. Thank you so much, and thank you to Short Focus. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.